Welcome back, friends! Today we're taking a look at McFarlane's DC Multiverse Joker, apparently based on DC Comics Rebirth, but it's pretty much just a classic comic book kind of Joker that uses the Arkham Asylum Joker's parts. Anyways, my big issue with this guy, as he turns around, you'll see his legs, they are like that. He's not bow-legged. This is actually called having knock knees, kinda. I mean, the knees aren't all the way touching like you have with the actual medical condition thing, but the shins curve outward. I think that might be a result of how he's packaged, but I mean, it also seems like to be the way he's sculpted, so it's kind of odd. I wish the legs were just a little more straight, but rest of the sculpt, it definitely has its ups and downs. The coattails on the back here are rubbery. In fact, this whole upper clothing piece is rubbery to accommodate the articulation that's in there. And they are not straight, those coattails, like they are swept to the figure's right a little bit instead of just having a neutral straight down sculpt. And the suit definitely has some wrinkles and folds sculpted in it here and there, but what it mostly has is most noticeable is the texture of the fabric sculpted everywhere. And, you know, some people may like this, but I mean, honestly, at this scale relative to like a human being, fabric is not, you know, this texture. It doesn't have this much depth to it, so it makes the suit just look a really wrinkly compared to the Joker. I mean, it kind of works for the Joker if you prefer this aesthetic. I mean, it could look kind of chaotic, but I think it kind of betrays the scale. Now, for the hands, the Joker has this left hand that's sculpted in a very maniacal pose, like I'm laughing too much and I can't contain myself, ha 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 pose, and then the right hand's just a trigger finger. But that McFarlane tendency to sculpt too much detail, like he did with the suit and all the fabric details that just make it look wrinkly, definitely continues on the hands here, because I mean, look at those. What are those bumps and lumps? These look like snakeskin gloves. Like, what kind of white, you know, opera kind of gloves, fancy gloves that the Joker is supposed to be wearing have bumps in them like this. This just does not look correct at all at this scale. Again, I think they're trying to do too much detail and too much fabric, that more than it would have been more accurate to do like a smooth. I know it would have had less details on the purple suit parts, but I think for the gloves at least, and definitely that should be smooth right there. Now the chain on here is just sculpted on, and I think it would have been pretty cool if they did like a separate metal piece, but I mean, that is what it is. The rest of the body is fine, I guess. It is really the head that is an amazing sculpt. I mean, that hair there is a separate piece, and they let it get some like loose little strands dangling on top. That looks so good to me, honestly. And then, man, that's a maniacal Joker expression. I just love how his cheeks are raised up and the little wrinkles in his eyes. And look at the teeth. Each tooth is individually sculpted. That just looks fantastic to me. And if we take a look at the paint, I mean, that is some impressive paintwork in the mouth there, especially when you consider that that is not a separate mouthpiece that they popped into the head there. That is all paintwork on its own. That makes the different shades of red really stand out. Like his tongue is a darker red and it's got gloss, and then the teeth are painted pretty cleanly. Like, what kind of color are the Joker's teeth? Like, if they were white, I understand they would look good compared to his white skin, but like, man, the Joker got some brown teeth. That's kind of gross there, actually. Anyways, airbrushing on the eyes is red. I mean, personal preference, like, some people may think it's a bit too much, but I think it's really well done. The hair is just very matte, plain green. I mean, the hair is a separate piece, so they probably could have afforded to put like a dry brush on it or something, like some kind of highlight color, but I mean, this is definitely accurate. This looks fine. I don't really have a complaint with it. It's just kind of plain relative to the rest of the head. Now, the flower on his lapel looks pretty sloppy. Like, are these black lips making a kiss on the middle of the flower there? What is that? And it's a little off the sculpted detail for the kissy mouth shape, whatever that is there. I mean, it's supposed to be a flower. Just like paint it with a little red circle in the middle or something, right? I don't know. Then the bow tie here, it's painted pretty cleanly, but if you turn to the side, like, the paint lacks the depth of the sculpt. It doesn't go as far down, but I mean, that's pretty minor. It's clean on the front, and that's what's important to me. The chain down here, I mean, it's sculpted on, but it's painted very cleanly. That looks like great gold paint right there. There's no wash on the body, so the, you know, purple suit looks pretty plain, even though it's got all the sculpted details, and I think a wash would just bring out the details more, so I'm actually okay with the fact that there's no wash. What I'm not okay with is none of these buttons, front or back, have been painted. Like, I think some of them would be a separate color. Same thing goes for like little buttons on the wrist there. I mean, I've seen comic book panels where these are big white buttons on the, you know, orangey cuffs that come out of his suit there, so that is not accurate. Worst offender with the paint, though, has to be the shoes. Now, you might be looking at them saying, what's wrong? Well, look closely at those shoes. They have these sculpted fabric coverings on them, and if you know what these are called spats. And I mean, I know they reused the legs and the feet from the Arkham Asylum Joker, and guess what? In the Arkham Asylum Joker, the spats were painted white like they're supposed to be. So maybe in the Rebirth look, like they didn't, they just felt like his shoes are supposed to be plain black and he's not supposed to have spats. But, I don't really buy that. If that's true, they should probably have resculpted the feet, but I don't think it is true because, here's a comic book Joker from Mattel of all people, and they painted the spats white, and DC Direct, they paint the spats white. So what gives, McFarlane? I mean, you're getting outdone by Mattel on the paint here, or the sculpt, whichever way you look at it. Like, just sculpt some new feet if you just want black shoes. I'm pretty sure comic book Joker has his white spats over them. So, I mean, the head's fantastic, and pretty much just like the sculpt. It's great on the head, and the rest is kind of subpar. Subpar paint, subpar sculpt on the body, if you ask me, actually. Anywho, moving on to articulation, Joker has a ball joint head, goes so far up, so far down, spins all the way around, and you gotta raise his chin up a little to get it in the back, and gets good side to side right there. The shoulders are hinge and swivel, and they are inside those butterfly cups McFarlane likes to use, but they don't get much range. Like, they can go so far forward and so far back and so far up and so far down with those cups. But using the hinge, he gets up to 90 just fine and can swing all the way around. There's a bicep cut, a double elbow, which is very nice, and then those sort of hinged balls at the wrist, but the sculpt of the cuff kind of prevents him from doing 90 like most figures. Still, he's getting pretty good range on the hands when they, want to cooperate with the cuff. Hidden inside the rubber torso seems to be a single diaphragm joint. Gets pretty good left, right, backwards, and forwards range, and can twist all the way around, so I appreciate that. The hips are standard McFarlane C-clamps, which means he can do the splits very far. The legs come so far forward, so far back. Thankfully, he's got sort of a rubber diaper kind of thing there. They can swivel like a little bit, but it's really not much. We should have thigh cuts there, McFarlane. Anyways, though, we do get double knees, which is great. Joker can almost kick his own booty there. The ankles seem to be on ball joints, but the sculpt of the bell-bottom-y suit pants doesn't really let him get any, range beyond what you see right here. There are, however, toe joints, which are really impressive. This one's a little loose, and the one on the right is very loose. Overall, articulation's very good. We need thigh cuts. McFarlane ain't gonna give it to us. What are you gonna do? Joker came in the same old McFarlane Toys packaging we've seen a bunch of times. Says 22 points of articulation up there, even though it says that for pretty much every figure in this line. Got the name of the figure on there, and on the back, the variant cover to Justice League number 8 with the artwork by Jim Lee, which this figure doesn't really seem to be based on. I mean, did you remember the figure have the hair going over the eyes? I don't think so, but I mean, minor nitpick. Let's open this bad boy up. Same old blue tray as usual. You gotta rip it to get the collector card and the face out, which I don't think is great, McFarlane, but I mean I'll do that later. Joker's got one twist tie around the waist, another one up at his left hand there, which looks pretty tight actually. I might have to cut both of them just to get him out. Well, I'll say this for your packaging, McFarlane. Joker was certainly secure in there. As usual, I think it could be more collector friendly. I mean, you really shouldn't have to rip the card back just to get the little cards and bases out, and I think the dynamic poses might be warping my figure a little bit here there at the joints, but I mean, for the most part, the packaging is fine. Now for accessories, the Joker has his extended barrel revolver, which showed up first in the Tim Burton Batman movie, and I think has popped up here and there since. It is a Smith & Wesson Model 15-3 with a 21-inch barrel, and yeah, I mean, that does look proportionate to the first Tim Burton movie there. Big issue with it, though, is it's not dark enough. This is not a gunmetal gray. This is like a light toy plastic gray, and then, there's no painted details for the handle or anything. Like, I mean, come on, McFarlane, this is pretty cheap looking, honestly, but Joker, of course, has a trigger finger in his right hand, and despite how cheaply painted it looks, the Joker does get, some cool poses with it, considering the extended barrel proportions there. Joker likes them long, ladies, I guess. Then he gets a crowbar, which I guess is the crowbar he used to beat Jason Todd to death in Death in the Family. And if you look at that actual comic book and the panels, this crowbar is also not dark enough. It's the same, light gray plastic as the gun there, and it looks very toyish and, not McFarlane-like at all. Honestly, I don't expect much painted detail, but you could have at least sculpted it in a darker gray. Maybe they're reusing this from something else, but You know, it can only fit in his right hand, his trigger finger hand, and a little loose in there, honestly. His left hand's too maniacal and be even looser than that, but I mean, hey, you can sort of wedge it in here and there and get some decent poses with it. Not really like he's beating anybody, because if you try and, you know, pose it upwards, it has a tendency to slide through when this little wedge part isn't wedged in there. So if you want it to be like there, just goes and falls down. But, you know, it's a decent accessory, good idea, just not dark enough. Then, of course, he comes with a collector card in this stand, like all the McFarlane figures. Same comic artwork we saw before, and bio on the back. It does not reveal the Joker's real name. It's still unknown, but you can pause that if you'd like to read it. I like to put it in the trash. Now, this stand here almost kind of works for the Joker, because, like, he's a smaller character than most superheroes, but because he's so, like, look, that almost works right there. I mean, just barely. It's kind of a small stand, right? But because Joker's so, like, you know, knock-kneed and legs outstretched, he just is never gonna stand centered on it, so it kind of doesn't look great, and you're better going with a bigger stand. I mean, those are kind of throwaway accessories. Really, Joker gets two things, which are the gun. Oh, maybe he does need a stand. Joker really gets two accessories, the gun and the crowbar, neither of which look right, so kind of a disappointment in that department, friends. Now for the scale, Joker pretty much stands at 7 inches or 18 centimeters tall. Here he is with standard 6-inch superhero Batman and Spider-Man figures, 6-inch DC Classics Joker from Mattel,
Oh, what happened to your leg?
and a 7-inch comic book Joker from DC Direct, now known as DC Collectibles, but they were called DC Direct back then. And since Joker is a 7-inch figure, here he is with 7-inch Rambo and Commando, Robocop and Terminator, Alien and Predator. At the end of the day, friends, this is a good but not great Joker figure, and when even Mattel's making a better one, it's hard to recommend the McFarlane version, so I can't in all good consciousness say go out and get it, unless you don't have any other Joker figures, pretty much. But I do, and I've had better ones than this. It's nice to have double, you know, elbows and knees, but the bow-leggedness and it's not a real chain, and then the weird texture on all the suit everywhere, and the fact the buttons aren't painted. I guess I could paint myself, and I could, you know, add thigh cuts myself, but that's not the point of this review. The point of this review is to review what McFarlane gave us, and McFarlane gave us diddly poop. I mean, he gave us gray mushin looking toyetic poo-poo. It could have been a lot better. Well, peace out, YouTube.